Alright, what's going on YouTube? This is Keith with Less Magic, More Gathering, and today we are going to take a look at a rotation-proof deck that we've put together. Guilds of Ravnica is upon us. We've got spoilers. We're not using any of the spoiled cards in this deck, but it is devoid of all cards that are rotating out. So it's a good competitive deck the way it is. We'll see what we get from Guilds of Ravnica, and there may be some changes to be made based on those cards, but it's pretty good the way it is. So before we do that, we're going to take a look at the bottom of the screen right down there. And if you could, please follow us on Twitter at LMMG2018. We're also going to take a look at 3 channels. Channels, podcasts, and writers. We've got a variety of people for you to take a look at this week. So let's get to that. First, we're going to take a look at Masters of Magic. They've got a ton of articles, things that they've written all about magic. If you're sitting on the pot, hope you don't mind me saying that, and you need something to read, Masters of Magic is really good. They've got lots and lots of content, things for you to look at. It's definitely worth going to their site, which is down there in the description, and taking a look at what they've got. I don't think you'll be disappointed. Next, we've got Magic with Zuby. Magic with Zuby is a podcast, YouTube channel. They got a website. They've got merch you can buy. All kinds of stuff from Magic with Zuby. So, I listen to Zuby a lot when I'm on the road. I do a lot of driving. And since he's like a podcast format, even his YouTube videos, some of them, not all of them, but some of them are, just his logo and him talking with any number of his great, co-host and guest that he has on his show. Definitely worth taking a listen. Check out his website. Check out his merchandise. Lots of good stuff from him. I enjoy listening to him and have had countless hours that I've listened to him while I've been on the road. So, good times. And finally, we're going to send you over to EDH Academy. Anything and everything Commander. They've got everything from talks about deck techs and things like that to reviews and other things like that. They are a podcast, not a YouTube channel. So again, if you're on the road, if you do a lot of driving, or someplace where you can't or don't want to be watching a video, EDH Academy is definitely worth taking a listen. So check out the links down there in the description, like I said, and let them know that I sent you over and that we're supporting them. They're all worth taking a look at. So let's get into this deck. Can you guess what kind of deck it is? That's right, dragons. We got Sark in there with dragon arms. So let's take a look at our creatures here. We're going to start out with a couple ramp type creatures. Skirk Prospector is a 1-drop 1/1, allows you to sacrifice a goblin to add a red. And yes, you can sacrifice him, and often will, just to be able to cast something that's bigger and better than he is. Especially once you've got your mana fixed and you don't have to worry about getting different colors and things. You can usually get rid of him, no problem. But he also works well with our next creature. Wily Goblin is a 2-drop that creates a treasure when he enters the battlefield. Another 1/1. And after he enters the battlefield, you usually don't mind sacrificing him to get mana of another color so that you can cast your bigger spells. With Wily Goblin and Skirk Prospector, you could cast a 6-drop, I think. Let me do the math. 6-drop on turn 3. So you go land, Skirk Prospector, land, Wily Goblin, get a treasure. Next turn you go land, and then you can tap those 3 lands, sacrifice Wily Goblin, sacrifice Skirk Prospector, and sacrifice your treasure token to drop a 6-drop. So lots of good ramp, and those 2 spells work very well together. And most often when I've tested and played with this deck, you're going to use those 2 to get into something a lot better, and once they're gone, you don't miss them. Sometimes you'll hit them in the late game and you just throw them down to be a drop blocker for something that doesn't have trample, something like that, just to kind of get in the way. And I've noticed that a lot of times, even if your opponent has removal, they will not target these 2 for some reason. Like if somebody puts a Llanowar Elf out, it's almost always immediately targeted for removal, but they don't really give a crap about these 2. But they work well together to really ramp you into some big stuff if you want to. What's next? Next, we've got 2 copies of Varric's Bladewing. Varric's is a 4-drop, and it has a kicker 3. So you can cast it for 4, and you get 1 4/4 flying dragon. If you cast it for 7, which we often do, you're going to get 2 4/4 flying dragons. So good benefit for a lot of the other spells that are in the deck. You'll see the different options that we've got. But being able to cast him for 7 is very beneficial because you get 2 big flyers out there. Next, we've got 3 copies of Nicol the Ravager. This is where a lot of the cost in the deck comes from. It's probably okay, though. I mean, it's the deck runs about $230 as things sit right now. But we're not talking about that right now. We're talking about the deck and what's in it. So we got 3 copies of Nicol the Ravager. He's going to flip over if you can pay 7, which it's usually pretty easy to get to that 7 mana. And once you flip him over, things get bad. But for 4-drop, 4/4 flyer that enters the battlefield and causes your opponents to discard a card, he's good all by himself. And he will very frequently become a target for your opponents to get rid of. And when he does flip, he flips over to Nicol the Arisen. He has a +2 of draw 2 cards, a -3 of deal 10 damage to a creature or planeswalker. -4 puts a creature or planeswalker from any graveyard onto the battlefield under your control, and -12 ends the game almost immediately. Exile all but the bottom card of target player's library. So if you get him flipped over, there's lots of good options there. You know, he can really change the tide of the game for you. Most of the time he doesn't get flipped. He becomes the target immediately when he hits the battlefield. Doesn't matter what else you have out, this thing's going to get killed a lot. But he does draw in that removal, which allows you to get other things out and keep other things on the battlefield. So it's not always bad. And if you do get the chance to flip him, like I said, it'll swing the tide very quickly. Next one, we've got 3 copies of Demanding Dragon. This is a 5-drop flyer. When it enters the battlefield, it either deals 5 damage to an opponent or they sacrifice a creature. So good benefits both ways. It's kind of like the Glorybringer replacement. Not quite, but kind of. And then you do get a 5/5 flying body, so that's good too. We've also got 2 copies of Bone Dragon. Bone Dragon is a 5-drop 5/4 flyer. And once it's in the graveyard, you can pay 5, exile 7 other cards from your graveyard, and return it to the battlefield tapped. Now, we've got some instants. We've got cards that your opponents are going to kill and remove. So it's not too hard to get that 7 other cards in your graveyard so you can bring him back. Or if you're playing against something like a mill deck, you know, obviously there'll be cards in there. And if he gets put into the graveyard by milling, then you can bring him back from there too. So handy dandy. Easy recursion usually, and a good body all by himself. You know, like I said, 5/4 flyer for 5 is not bad. And then finally on our creatures, we've got 1 copy of Laughless Dragon Queen. We had to put her in. Laughless is a 6-drop 6/6 flyer. Whenever another non-token dragon enters the battlefield under your control, you create a 5/5 dragon. So it's going to be an engine for producing more dragons for you, and it also has the ability where you can pay 2, a red and 1 other, and all your dragons get +1/+0 until end of turn. So if you've got a good board full of dragons, you can usually finish the game pretty quickly once Laughless is out there. And if Laughless is your turn 3 play that we were talking about earlier, that's hard on an opponent. Usually the good thing for them, though, is that at that point, if you drop a bomb like Laughless on turn 3, there's a good chance your opponent will have some removal in their hand still. So sometimes it's better to wait, save it, drop it later in the game once their hands are emptied, and you can not have to worry so much about them destroying it. But good creature to go along with the other dragons in the deck. Now for our instant spells, I know I told you with the Bone Dragon that we have other spells and things that you'll be able to exile from the graveyard. We've got a few instants here. And this is also, we built a mono red dragon deck previously, and being able to cast these instant spells and things like the Bone Dragon, Nicol those are reasons that we got out of the mono red version of this deck and got into a kind of red black splash blue version. So we've got 4 copies of Cast Down. Cast Down's a 2-drop instant, destroys a non-legendary creature. We've also got 3 copies of Spit Flame. That was in the mono red version, but this is really good with our dragons that we've got in the deck. It's 3 cost, does 4 damage to a creature, and then anytime a dragon enters the battlefield under your control, even if it's a token, you can pay 1, and if you do, you return it to your hand. So it's recursion on that instant spell. It's good removal almost all the time, and like I said, with the recursion, just makes it that much better, especially with the number of dragons we're hoping to be pumping out. And back to the black here, we've got 2 copies of Vraska's Contempt. This is going to help us get rid of things that have the indestructible or planeswalkers that we don't want around anymore. We just need to get rid of. So, and it gains us 2 life, which is sometimes important. But Vraska's Contempt, that's a good card in any deck that's got black in it. So, sorceries, we've got 1 sorcery in the deck. We're going to run 2 copies of Walk the Plank. I know a lot of people would probably disagree with this and run something over it. But a 2 cost, destroy anything but a Merfolk spell is good efficiency on your mana. You know, if you have to skip a dragon entering the battlefield to destroy something that's not really that important, you probably don't play your Walk the Plank. But sometimes they've got a creature out there that you just have to get rid of, and for 2 mana, you can probably still play something else that turn and get your Walk the Plank to do its thing too. So in testing, it's worked well, and I'll leave it in there. If you want to take it out, feel free. You can put in something like Murder. It's an extra mana though, but it is instant speed. So Walk the Plank benefits from being a low-cost removal. Artifacts, obviously we're playing a dragon deck, so we're going to throw in 3 copies of Dragon's Horde. 3-drop artifact. It taps for 1 mana of any color, so it'll help us fix our mana if we need to get something out and we don't have the lands for it yet. And also when a dragon enters the battlefield, we put a counter on it, and then we can tap it and remove a counter to draw a card. So lots of good benefits from this. It's like a manolith that gives you the extra benefit of being able to draw cards with it. So no reason to pass that up. And finally, our land base here, we've got 10 mountains. Anybody notice that's not a mountain? This is the new Guilds of Ravnica lands. It drives me crazy when the basic lands have pictures that don't represent what they're supposed to. Like, that's not a mountain. That's a city. That's a town. That's a bunch of buildings. Whatever, wizards. You're weirdos. So 10 mountains, 6 swamps. We've got 4 copies of Dragon Skull Summit. This is going to come in untapped probably 95% of the time because it's pretty easy to get a mountain or a swamp on the battlefield prior to this. And if you don't have a mountain or swamp in your hand, you're probably mulliganing it. Mulliganing? Anyway, so it's easy for this to come out untapped almost all the time. And we've also got 4 copies of Drowned Catacomb. No islands in the deck, but we do have some swamps. So sometimes this one will enter the battlefield tapped, but sometimes it's good to have that blue, especially if you don't have the Dragon's Horde, or you haven't been able to cast a Wily Goblin to get a treasure. Drowned Catacomb can help you cast that, or flip the Nicol Bolas. So that was the deck. Like I said, please follow us on Twitter down there. That's an easy way to get a hold of us if you want to see a certain deck. If you've got a card that you'd like us to try and build a deck around. If you've got questions about anything, just hit us up on that and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let us know down in the comments what you might change or do differently. If you try this deck out and have good success with it, let us know. We'd love to hear feedback. If you try it out and you don't have success with it, keep it to yourself. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time. Deuces. Hey, thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, go down below and find that subscribe button. Press it and the notification bell so that you'll know when we post new videos. If you've got some feedback, follow that arrow to the comment section and let us know what you think. See you next time.